What's up, ThrillNerds? John here. Over the past few weeks, I've heard a lot of conversation and a lot of concern around something called Enchanted Parks. Anytime a new name starts circulating around alongside familiar parks, people understandably jump to the worst case scenarios. Are parks being sold? Are parks closing? Is something bad about to happen? So I want to take some time today and actually look at what's currently out there. What's confirmed, what's not, and what the situation really looks like. This isn't a breaking news video and it's not a prediction video. It's just about slowing things down and adding context and separating what we know from what we're still waiting to learn. Because at the moment, Enchanted Parks mostly represents the unknown, and the unknown doesn't automatically mean bad. So let's get into it. Enchanted Parks is a real legal entity, but it's important to understand what that actually represents right now. Enchanted Parks Holdings LLC was formed in late 2025, and since then, a number of trademarks have been filed under that name. Those filings, which are publicly visible through the United States Patent and Trademark Office, cover things like amusement parks, water parks, merchandise, and even lodging. At the moment, all of those trademarks are listed as live and pending, which tells us that someone is protecting options rather than announcing outcomes. This is a normal step in early planning, and it often happens well before anything is finalized or made public. In a lot of cases, that planning stage never turns into something guests actually see. So right now, Enchanted Parks isn't a brand you can visit or something that's been rolled out. It's simply a name tied to a public record, sitting in that in-between phase where ideas are being prepared and not revealed.
Let's break it down, but let's root this discussion in what we know.
Having a nervous reaction makes sense. In this industry, we've seen how quickly things can change. And when people hear about trademarks, holding companies, or potential ownership shifts, it's easy to connect those dots to worst-case scenarios. The closure of Six Flags America is still very fresh in a lot of people's minds, and that situation showed how suddenly a park can disappear when the land underneath it becomes more valuable than operating the park itself.
Yeah, well, don't remind me of it.
That's a very specific set of circumstances, but it left a lasting impression for fans. So when a new name like Enchanted Parks starts circulating alongside familiar parks, it's natural for people to assume the same thing might happen again. These parks aren't just businesses. They're tied to memories, routines, and family traditions, so uncertainty around them feels personal. That concern isn't irrational, it's a reaction shaped by recent history, and it's missing some important context that changes how this situation should be viewed. The situation starts to look different once you zoom out and look at the broader context around Six Flags Entertainment Corporation as a business. Over the past year, company leadership has talked openly during earnings calls about reevaluating their park profile and focusing more heavily on core, high-return assets. That usually means parks that operate year-round, drive destination travel, and justify large capital investments more quickly. When a company that size makes decisions like that, it doesn't automatically reflect the health or the popularity of every individual park. It reflects internal competition for attention and resources. Regional, seasonal, or water park-focused properties can still be profitable and well-liked by guests while simply not fitting that top priority category. So when you look at the parks that tend to come up in conversation around Enchanted Parks, when you look at the parks that are involved with the new Enchanted Parks trademark, it helps to stop thinking of them as interchangeable assets and instead look at what each of them actually represents. Six Flags St. Louis is one of the original Six Flags parks. It's part of the company's foundation, with decades of history and deeply rooted local audience. It's a park that still serves its region well and does exactly what it was built to do, even if it's not a year-round destination that commands the bulk of corporate investment today. Then there's Oceans of Fun, which is especially interesting in this context because it isn't a standalone park. It's the water park that directly connects to Worlds of Fun. The fact that a trademark was filed for Oceans of Fun, but not Worlds of Fun, suggests a more targeted focus on the water park and hospitality side of that property, rather than the entire dry park operation. None of these parks are failing, and none of them are being ignored. They're specialized, and in some cases, it's the water park portion of a larger property that makes the most sense in conversations like this. Looking at it through that lens shifts the discussion away from fear and towards structure. And that's where innovative attraction management really starts to bring this whole picture into focus. IAM isn't a new or speculative player. They've been operating parks for years, and their portfolio leans heavily towards water parks, resorts, and hospitality-driven destinations rather than large, dry park thrill portfolios. In 2024, they acquired Enchanted Forest Water Safari along with its associated lodging and camping properties. And the park has continued to operate successfully since then, maintaining strong guest feedback and its existing identity. That matters because it shows a very different approach than what people usually fear when they hear about ownership changes. This isn't about buying land to flip it or strip it down, it's about acquiring properties that already fit into an operator's strengths and improving them over time. When you line that up with Enchanted Parks trademarks, especially the emphasis on water parks and resort-style experiences, it starts to feel less like a warning sign and more like a pattern, where specific pieces of larger properties make sense under a more focused ownership without automatically putting the entire park at risk.
Is this a good thing that's happening?
This kind of transition actually lowers the risks of closure rather than raising it. Parks usually shut down when no one wants to operate them, when there's no buyer interest in keeping the gates open, and the land itself becomes the most valuable part of the equation. That doesn't really line up with what we're seeing here. The parks tied to this conversation already fit neatly into IAM's specialty. Buying parks to actively run them is very different from buying land to redevelop it. And those two motivations lead to a very different outcome for guests. In situations like this, the goal isn't to make sweeping promises or massive expansions. It's to keep parks healthy, improve them incrementally, and give them the attention they might not receive inside a larger corporate structure. I think it's very important to highlight that fact in particular. If Enchanted Parks will be the owner and operator in the near future, each of these parks under that umbrella will likely begin to receive the love they did not receive under Six Flags. What are small parks for Six Flags will be major parks for this smaller, more focused company. This can only work in a positive way for these parks, and I think that families and fans that have these as home parks should be excited about their future. There are still some important things that we don't know, and it's worth being clear about that. There haven't been any confirmed deals announced, there's no public timeline, and there are multiple ways something like this could eventually take shape. Full park sales, partial assets transfer, or situations where ownership and operations are split. Trademark filings don't tell us which of those paths, if any, will actually happen. And they don't tell us when. Being upfront about that uncertainty matters, because jumping to conclusions too early usually creates more anxiety than clarity, especially when people care deeply about these parks. And that's where we stand right now. This is a moment for waiting and not worrying. There hasn't been an official statement from Six Flags Entertainment, and there hasn't been a confirmation from Innovative Attraction Management about the future acquisitions beyond what's publicly available. Everything we've talked about comes from trademark filings, public records, and a broader industry context, and not insider information. This kind of silence is normal in transactions like this, and it doesn't automatically signal bad news. Big corporate moves rarely happen on fan timeline, and the lack of updates doesn't mean something negative is happening behind the scenes. So for now, the healthiest approach is patience. These parks aren't disappearing overnight, guests aren't waking up to lock gates, and no one is losing their home park tomorrow. Right now, this is simply a conversation. If you've been feeling uneasy about all of this, you're not alone. It's okay to keep watching, asking questions, and paying attention as more information becomes public. I'd love to hear about how you're feeling about it and what you're keeping an eye on as this develops. So feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. If this kind of breakdown of clarity is helpful, I'd really appreciate you hitting the like button. It genuinely helps my channel more than you think. And if you'd like to join me on this YouTube adventure, I'd be honored to have you subscribe. There's a lot more park coverage, discussion, and storytelling coming, and I'd love to have you along. If you're looking for even more coaster talk, I co-host a podcast called Coaster Chronicles, where we get into longer conversations, stories from parks, and just general coaster nonsense. All of those links will be posted down below. As always, thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I hope to catch you around the parks.